I spent 40 years of my life surrounded by noise. The scream of machinery, the endless honking of city traffic, the constant, draining buzz of other people. My name is Ray Nelson. I'm 67 years old and I used my entire life savings to buy one thing: silence. I got exactly 3 days of it. I was sitting on the porch of my new Wyoming cabin, watching a hawk circle in a sky so blue it hurt to look at when my phone rang. It was my son-in-law, Cornelius. He didn't say hello. My parents lost their house. They're moving in with you for a couple months. The words were so arrogant, so devoid of any question, that I actually pulled the phone away from my ear to stare at it. Wait, what? Cornelius, I just bought this place. It's 800 square feet, it's for me. It's just for a couple months, until they find a place. I bought this place to be alone. I spent my entire retirement. Then you should have stayed in Denver. His voice was flat, final. Friday morning, I'll text you their arrival time. The line went dead. I sat there, the silence of the mountains now feeling heavy, suffocating. The elk I'd been watching had vanished. Smart animals. 40 years, overtime shifts, skipped vacations, brown bag lunches, all of it compressed into a cashier's check for $185,000 for my freedom. And with one phone call, my own son-in-law was treating it like a family flophouse. If you're new here, hit subscribe. This isn't just a story about a cabin. This is a story about what happens when a quiet man is pushed too far. And trust me, what I did next, they never saw it coming. The old me would have sighed, would have grumbled and given in. The man who spent 40 years keeping the peace. But that man died in Denver. I went inside my cabin, and poured a coffee I didn't want. I sat at the small kitchen table and pulled out my engineering notepad, and I started to plan, not with rage but with cold, precise calculation. The first move was reconnaissance. The next morning, I drove to the Yellowstone National Park Ranger Station. I played the part perfectly, the nervous new retiree from the city, worried about the local wildlife. Lots of bear activity come spring, the ranger said, friendly and helpful. What about wolves? I asked, injecting a little fear into my voice. Reintroduction, been very successful. They're usually shy but incredible sense of smell, can detect prey from miles away. I took careful notes. Wind patterns, pack territories, seasonal behavior. I thanked him warmly, the picture of a concerned greenhorn. My next stop was an outdoor supply store in Cody. Looking for wildlife cameras, I told the clerk. Want to monitor bear activity near my property. He sold me 2 top-of-the-line models, motion-activated, night vision, cellular connectivity, $340 cash. Back at the cabin, I installed them with the methodical precision of an engineer, one covering the driveway, one angled at the porch. Tested, adjusted, verified. They connected to my phone. The trap was set. Phase 2 required bait. I drove back to Cody, to a butcher shop that smelled of sawdust and blood. Need 20 pounds of beef scraps, I said. Organ meat, fat trimmings for dogs. The butcher didn't blink. $45. The coolers I loaded into my truck filled the cab with a powerful metallic scent. That afternoon, I stood in the clearing behind my cabin. I checked the wind the old-fashioned way with a wet finger. Then I walked 30 yards upwind from my home and placed the meat in 3 deliberate, calculated piles. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was trying to send a message. A very, very clear message. I locked the cabin, got in my truck, and drove the 5 hours back to my empty house in Denver. I set up my laptop, propped my phone for the camera feeds, and waited. Friday morning, 10:00 a.m. right on schedule. A sedan appeared on my phone screen. My in-laws, Leonard and Grace, emerged. They looked around my sanctuary with expressions of pure distaste. "This is where he's living now," Grace wrinkled her nose. It smells like pine and dirt. At least it's free, Leonard grumbled, walking toward the cabin. We'll stay a few months. Let Cornelius figure out the next step. Then they froze. From the northwest tree line, 3 gray shapes emerged, moving with a silent, purposeful grace. Wolves. Leonard's face turned the color of chalk. Get in the car now. They ran. Grace stumbled, scrambled up. Car doors slammed. The engine roared to life and they reversed out of my driveway in a wild spray of gravel, fishtailing onto the dirt road. The wolves, utterly uninterested in the hysterical humans, continued their slow, deliberate walk toward the free meal I'd provided. I closed my laptop. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Cornelius. The flat, corporate tone was gone, replaced by sputtering fury. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," I said, my voice calm. "I warned you this property is in the wilderness. You set this up. You baited those animals." "Cornelius," I said slowly, "I live in wolf country. Wolves live here. This is their home. Maybe you should have asked before assuming you could use mine." "You're insane. I'm going to." "You're going to what?" I interrupted. "Sue me because wildlife exists on my property. Good luck with that." "This isn't over." "No," I said quietly, "it's just beginning." I ended the call. The first battle was won, but I knew a man like Cornelius wouldn't surrender. He would escalate, and I needed to be ready. The next move was his. It took 2 weeks. I was splitting firewood when my daughter Beulah called. Her voice was broken. "Dad, please." "Honey, what's wrong?" Cornelius showed me the footage of the wolves. That could have been so much worse. The script was obvious. He was using my daughter, turning her into his messenger. "Beulah, wolves live in these mountains. I didn't create that situation. I warned Cornelius this wasn't appropriate housing for his parents. But you knew they were coming. You could have done something to make it safer." "I bought this property for solitude," I said, my voice level, a stark contrast to her tears. "No one asked if I was willing to host guests, but I'm willing to meet with them. In town, neutral ground, we'll talk." I hung up. The war was entering a new phase, the political phase. 2 days later, I drove to a small cafe in Cody. I arrived early, chose my table with care, back to the wall, clear view of the entrance. I had 3 copies of a document in my folder. Leonard and Grace arrived on time, their faces set in identical masks of entitlement. They sat without ordering. "Ray, this has gone on long enough," Leonard began. "We need those keys today." "We're not here for coffee," Grace added. "We're here because family is supposed to help family." I pulled the top document from my folder and slid it across the table. It made a soft, definitive sound on the wood. "I agree," I said, "which is why I've prepared a proposal." Leonard glanced down, his face contorted. "A rental agreement. You're charging us rent. Market rate for a furnished property in this area, $1,200 monthly, 6-month lease, standard terms. You want money from your own family." His voice climbed, drawing looks from other patrons, from people who have nowhere to go. Grace leaned forward, her expression a masterpiece of fake hurt. "I never thought you were this kind of person, Ray. Greedy." I stood, collected my folder, and picked up my coffee cup. "Then I guess we don't have an agreement. You'll need to find alternative housing." "You can't just, where are we supposed to?" Leonard half rose from his chair. "That," I said calmly, "is not my problem to solve." I walked out. The public rejection was a calculated insult, and it worked perfectly. The retaliation was swift and dirty. That evening, my phone became a weapon. First, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. "Ray, Cornelius called. He's worried about you. Said you're isolated, acting strangely." Then a former colleague, same script. "Cornelius reached out, concerned about your mental state." He was building a narrative. Ray Nelson is unstable. He's a danger to himself and others. The final call was Beulah, her voice sharp with anger. You embarrassed them, in public, a rental agreement, Dad, really. I offered them a fair solution. They rejected it. Their family, Cornelius's parents. And this is my home. I finally let a sliver of steel into my voice. My retirement, my one place of peace, which I bought with money I saved for 40 years. Cornelius was right, she said, her voice cold. You've changed. You've become someone I don't recognize. The line went dead. I sat in the deepening mountain dark, the silence now feeling hostile. 3 calls, all the same message. Cornelius wasn't just trying to take the cabin anymore. He was trying to destroy my credibility, to make me seem incompetent. The next logical step would be to have me declared unfit to go for conservatorship. It was time to bring in a professional. The office of David Thornton, attorney at law, smelled of leather and old money. I laid it all out for him with the same precision I'd used on my engineering projects. The property deed, the timeline, the recorded threats, the smear campaign. Mr. Nelson, Thornton said, steepling his fingers. This is a classic playbook. He's establishing grounds for a competency challenge. The solution is a revocable living trust. It makes you untouchable. The trust owns the assets, not you. Do it, I said without hesitation. How soon? 2 weeks. As I left his office, armed with a legal strategy, I made one more stop, the public library. In a corner terminal, I accessed Colorado property records. I typed in Beulah and Cornelius's address. And I found it. A home equity line of credit, $35,000, taken out 8 months ago. Single signature authorization, Cornelius's name only. Beulah didn't know. She would have had to sign otherwise. The pieces of the puzzle snapped together with an almost audible click. Leonard's gambling debt, Cornelius's secret loan, the desperate grab for my cabin. It was all about money. Their house of cards was collapsing, and they saw my property as the only thing that could save them. When I told Thornton, his voice was grim. This explains the desperation. He's using your cabin to cover his own debts. Then he offered an unconventional solution. You could purchase the defaulted debt. Banks sell delinquent loans. You'd become his creditor, anonymously. The power in that idea was immense, dark, and terrifying. I would hold the fate of my daughter's home in my hands. I walked my land that evening, the stars sharp and cold above me. If I did nothing, the bank would foreclose. Beulah would lose everything. If I bought the debt, I controlled the game. The next morning, I called Thornton. Do it. The transaction was clean, clinical. $31,000 from my savings to an intermediary firm. A new LLC was created, Mountain Holdings. I was the secret owner. Cornelius received a notice that his loan had been sold. He had no idea who now held his future. My position was now transformed. I was no longer just defending. I was controlling the board. But Cornelius had one more dirty play left. A week after I signed the trust documents, a professional-looking woman in a sedan pulled up to my cabin. Mr. Nelson, I'm Margaret Willows from Adult Protective Services. I'm here regarding a complaint about your welfare. The anger was a hot flash, but I kept my face neutral. A complaint by whom? I can't disclose that. May I come inside? Of course. I held the door open. I should tell you up front, I'm involved in a property dispute. I suspect this complaint is related. She was thorough. She documented my clean, organized cabin, my filed bills, my stocked refrigerator. I handed her the folder containing my recent, comprehensive medical evaluation from Dr. Chen, which stated clearly, Mr. Ray Nelson is mentally competent, physically healthy, and fully capable of managing his own affairs. She read it carefully. This is very proactive, Mr. Nelson. I believe in planning ahead. 10 days later, the official notification arrived. Case closed. Complaint unfounded. I filed it away in my growing evidence folder. The false allegations, the medical proof, the financial fraud, the secret debt I now owned, it was all there. The trap I had set was no longer just for wolves. It was for the predators in my own family, and they were walking right into it. Thornton called me, his voice tight with urgency. "Ray, I found something else. Leonard and Grace have been using your cabin address to receive mail, Social Security, a credit union. This is fraud." I drove to my mailbox and gloved up. Inside were 3 envelopes, all for Leonard or Grace Harrison, sent to my address. I photographed them, front and back, and sealed them in an evidence bag. "This is mail fraud," Thornton confirmed. "Federal crime. Once charges are filed, their credibility is destroyed." "Good," I said, looking out at my mountains. "Maybe they'll finally face consequences." But as I sat on my porch that night, I knew the final confrontation wasn't with them. It was with my daughter. She deserved to know the truth, all of it. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. The next move was the hardest one of all. I typed, "Honey, we need to talk. Can you come to the cabin this weekend? Just you, it's important." The silence in the cabin on Saturday morning was heavier than any I'd known. It was the quiet before the storm. I'd cleaned. I cooked Beulah's favorite chicken salad, and I'd laid the evidence folder on the kitchen table like a prosecutor preparing for trial. My heart wasn't pounding with fear, but with a profound, grim resolve. Today, I would break my daughter's heart to save her life. Her sedan appeared at 11:30, a cloud of dust trailing behind it. She got out looking tired and worried. I met her on the porch and hugged her. She was stiff in my arms. We made small talk over coffee, her job, the weather, but her eyes kept darting to the folder. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "Dad, what's going on? Your text scared me." I took a slow breath. "Honey, there are things about your financial situation that Cornelius hasn't told you. Serious things." She gave a nervous laugh. "What? Did he forget to pay a credit card bill? He gets distracted sometimes." "Beulah," I said, my voice low and steady, "your house is in foreclosure." The color drained from her face. "That's not possible. We pay the mortgage. Cornelius handles it online every month." "That's what he told you." I slid the notice of default across the table. "Here's the truth." She read it, her hands beginning to tremble. "This says, the loan was sold to Mountain Holdings LLC. Who is that?" "That's me." She stared, uncomprehending. "You bought our mortgage." "Technically, a company I control through my attorney bought your defaulted debt. Instead of the bank foreclosing, I control it now. You and Cornelius owe me." She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. "This is insane. Why didn't you just tell me the mortgage was behind?" "Would you have believed me?" I asked, my gaze unwavering. "Or would Cornelius have explained it away? I needed leverage, Beulah, to protect you from what's coming next." I let the words hang in the heavy air between us. "There's more," I continued. 8 months ago, Cornelius took out a home equity line of credit for $35,000 against your house." "That's not true," she insisted, her voice rising. "We'd both have to sign for that." I slid the HELOC documents across the table. "In Colorado, under certain circumstances, one spouse can secure a loan. Here's his signature." "Where?" "Yours." She snatched the papers, her eyes scanning them frantically. Her hands were shaking so badly the pages rattled. "I never signed this. I've never even seen this. $35,000. Where did it go?" "My best guess. Covering some of Leonard's gambling debts. The $47,000 you told me about." The realization dawned on her face, slow and horrifying. He was trying to fix his father's problem, using our house, without telling me. "Yes, and when that wasn't enough, when he couldn't get my cabin, he just stopped paying your mortgage." I suggested we eat. She refused at first, but I insisted. We needed a pause before the next wave hit. The sandwiches tasted like ash, but we ate. Then I showed her the rest, systematically, chronologically. I played the recording of Cornelius on my porch, his voice screaming, "I'll make sure you never see Beulah again." I showed her the Adult Protective Services complaint, where her husband tried to have me declared mentally incompetent. I laid out the evidence of Leonard and Grace's federal mail fraud, using my address to commit benefits fraud. With each new piece of evidence, her defenses crumbled. Denial turned to doubt, doubt to devastation. When she saw the APS complaint, she broke. Not gentle tears, but wrenching, shoulder-shaking sobs that seemed to tear their way out of her soul. I didn't try to comfort her with words. I just sat there, a steady presence in the wreckage of her world. When she could finally speak, it was through ragged breaths. How long have you known?" "Pieces since May, everything since July." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a fresh, sharp hurt. "Months. You've known for months that my marriage is a lie, that I'm in financial danger, and you didn't tell me." I met her gaze, my own heart aching. "If I had told you in May with no proof, would you have believed me? Or would Cornelius have convinced you I was just a paranoid, vindictive old man?" The fight went out of her. She knew I was right. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know, probably not. That's why I waited. That's why I gathered evidence, so you'd know the truth was real, not just your father's opinion." I refilled her coffee and pushed the sugar bowl toward her, an old, familiar gesture from her childhood. Then I presented the choice I'd been dreading. "You have a decision to make, Beulah, and you need to make it soon." "What decision?" "Stay with Cornelius or leave him." "How can I possibly decide that right now?" "You have a week," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "because federal agents are going to arrest Leonard and Grace within days. When that happens, everything becomes public. Cornelius will be questioned. Your marriage will be front-page news in a town that loves gossip." She put her head in her hands. "This is too much, I can't think." "If you leave him, file for divorce to protect yourself legally. I will forgive the entire mortgage debt. Your house will be yours, free and clear. I will help you rebuild." She looked up, her eyes wide with a fresh shock. "You're bribing me to leave my husband." "I'm offering you a lifeline," I corrected, my voice steady. "If you stay with him, I can't protect you from what's coming. The fallout will destroy you both." Hours later, exhausted and hollowed out, she gathered her things to leave. I walked her to her car, carrying a folder of document copies. She turned before getting in. "Did you ever think about what this would do to me, knowing all this?" "Every single day since I found out," I said, the truth raw in my voice. "That's why I built such a strong case, so you'd know I wasn't exaggerating. I don't know if I can forgive you for waiting so long." "I understand, but I'd rather have you angry at me for waiting than destroyed because you didn't know in time to protect yourself." "I need time to think." "You have a week," I repeated. "After that, everything moves forward, with you or without you." She looked at me with utterly exhausted eyes. "I don't know who to trust anymore." "Trust the documents, Beulah. They don't lie, people do." She drove away without looking back. I stood in the driveway until her car disappeared, the weight of what I'd done pressing down on me. I had just handed my daughter a bomb and told her she had to be the one to pull the pin. 5 days later, I was on my porch with my morning coffee when Thornton called. "It's happening now, Ray. Federal agents are executing arrest warrants for Leonard and Grace in Colorado." I set my mug down carefully. There was no triumph, only a grim sense of inevitability. "Thank you for telling me." An hour later, my phone rang again. "Beulah." "Dad, Cornelius just got a call. His parents were arrested by federal agents, something about fraud." Her voice was shaking. Were you involved in this?" I took a breath. I reported crimes to the proper authorities. What happened after that was the justice system doing its job. A long, heavy silence stretched over the line. Then quietly, "I need to call you back." The line went dead. Within 3 hours, Cornelius called, his voice a scream of pure, unadulterated rage. "You did this. You turned them in. You destroyed my family." I let him scream, saying nothing, letting him exhaust his fury. "Your parents committed federal crimes using my property," I said, my voice cold and flat when he paused for breath. "I reported it. That's what law-abiding citizens do. I'll tell everyone. I'll make sure they know you orchestratd this, that you're vindictive and cruel." "Go ahead," I said calmly. "I have documentation of every crime they committed. My attorney will be happy to share it publicly." Thornton, who had driven up to my cabin specifically for this moment, took the phone from my hand. "Mr. Harrison, this is David Thornton, legal counsel for Ray Nelson. Your parents committed federal crimes. My client fulfilled his civic duty. Any attempt to defame him will result in immediate legal action for defamation. Do you understand?" The only response was a sharp click. The final play was upon us. Desperate and cornered, Cornelius tried to sell the house he shared with Beulah. He needed cash for his parents' legal defense, for his own survival. But the title search revealed the problem he couldn't solve. The mortgage was in default, owned by the mysterious Mountain Holdings LLC. His realtor explained he couldn't sell without the lienholder's approval. Cornelius called Thornton in a panic. "Your firm owns my mortgage. How is that possible?" "My client purchased your defaulted debt through legal channels. You were notified weeks ago." "I need to sell this house. My parents need lawyers, please." "My client is willing to discuss terms," Thornton said, his voice devoid of all emotion. "You'll receive a formal offer within 24 hours. The next morning, a courier delivered a certified letter to Cornelius. The terms were simple, brutal, and final. I would forgive the entire mortgage debt, the $35,000 HELOC plus the $8,400 in arrears, a total of $43,400, wiped clean. The conditions: he must sign divorce papers with no asset claims against Beulah. He must sign a legal waiver relinquishing any and all claims to my property, estate, or assets. He must sign a sworn statement acknowledging he had no legal right to involve me in his financial problems. Deadline 72 hours. If he refused, I would foreclose immediately. He would lose the house anyway, with nothing to show for it. Cornelius called Beulah, trying one last time to manipulate her, to get her to fight me. Her response, which she told me later, was simple. "I already filed for divorce yesterday. Sign the papers, Cornelius, it's over." On Monday morning, a broken Cornelius Harrison appeared in David Thornton's office. Thornton described him later: disheveled, unshaven, his hands shaking as he signed every document: the divorce agreement, the property waiver, the sworn statement. When it was done, he asked in a small, broken voice, "Can I at least keep the house?" Thornton's reply was mercilessly factual. "Once the divorce is final, the house will be deeded solely to Beulah Nelson, free and clear. You'll need to find other accommodation." Cornelius left without another word. That same afternoon, my phone rang. It was Beulah. Her voice was different, still hurt, still processing a universe of pain, but there was a new strength underneath, a core of steel I hadn't heard in years. "Dad, I signed the divorce papers. I'm leaving him." She took a shaky breath. "I can't stay in that house. There are too many memories. Can you help me find something near you? I want to start over." The relief that flooded through me was so profound it felt like a physical weight lifting from my chest. It wasn't triumph. It was salvation. "Of course, honey. We'll find you something perfect, close enough to visit, far enough for your independence." "Are you disappointed in me?" she asked, her voice small, "for not seeing what he was sooner?" Never, I said, the word fierce with conviction. You trusted someone you loved. That's what good people do. He betrayed that trust. That's on him, not you. Her voice broke. Thank you, I needed to hear that. You're my daughter. I'm proud of you for making the hard choice. That takes real strength. 2 weeks later, I sat in a federal courtroom in Cheyenne, attending the sentencing of Leonard and Grace Harrison. I didn't need to be there, but I needed to see it through to the end. They stood before the judge, looking small and old in their cheap court clothes. They'd taken a plea deal. The judge's voice was firm. 2 years supervised probation, $45,000 in restitution and fines, a permanent ban from all state and federal benefit programs. You are fortunate to avoid prison. Do not squander this opportunity. As I left the courthouse, Leonard caught my eye across the marble lobby. For a single moment, our gazes locked. His was filled with a defeated, shameful hatred. Then he looked away. I felt no victory, only closure. The divorce was finalized by mid-September. Beulah legally resumed her maiden name. With my help, she found a small, charming 2-bedroom house in Cody with a view of the Absaroka Mountains. I provided the down payment. She got a mortgage for the rest and a new teaching job at the elementary school. We fell into a routine, Sunday dinners. I helped her paint, assemble furniture, and rebuild her life one piece at a time. The healing wasn't linear. Some days she was optimistic. Other days the anger and grief would resurface. I listened. I didn't try to fix it. I was just there. On a crisp September evening, we sat in matching rocking chairs on my porch, watching a herd of elk graze in the clearing as the sunset painted the mountains in shades of fire. Thank you, Dad, she said quietly, for everything, for fighting for me even when I didn't understand it. You don't have to thank me. I know, but I want to. You could have just protected yourself. You didn't. That was never an option, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Family means we protect each other, even when it's hard. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. Don't you ever apologize for being loyal, I said, looking at her. That speaks well of you. It always will. She smiled then, a genuine, peaceful smile that reached her eyes for the first time in months. She gestured to the big bull elk at the edge of the tree line. He's magnificent. That's my favorite. You'll get to know all the regulars. I already love it here, she said, her gaze sweeping over the cabin, the clearing, the endless sky. This feels like home. I rocked back in my chair, the gentle creak a soundtrack to my contentment. It is home, honey, for both of us now. Later, after she'd driven back to her new life in town, I stayed on the porch as the stars emerged, sharp and brilliant in the cold, clean air. I thought of the journey from that first, shocking phone call to this moment of hard-won peace. I'd protected what was mine. I'd used the law and strategy, not vengeance. My daughter was safe, building a new life out of the ashes of the old one. My cabin was my sanctuary again. The antagonists had faced consequences, but not destruction. They had a path to rebuild if they chose to take it. This was the retirement I'd fought for. Not the one I'd planned, but a better one. Forged in fire, earned through integrity, and now shared with the person who mattered most. The quiet man had spoken, and in the end, his silence was finally, truly peaceful. If you're listening to this, and you've ever had to make a hard choice to protect your family or your peace, let me know in the comments. Have you ever been pushed to a point where you had to fight back, not with anger, but with strategy? Remember this. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not to yell the loudest, but to plan the smartest, to be the quiet force that outlasts the storm. Until next time, this is Ray Nelson. Stay strong.